people are going back to the notion of product management being a commercial function. I would describe it as figure out what to build and what not. Talk to a customer. Sometimes it's that, right? Just do that with one customer and then we'll talk again.
Welcome to the Product Weekend podcast with Brito, Moita, and Büşra. We hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome to the Product Weekend podcast. Today with me, Brito, and Moita. We'll be talking with Büşra Coskuner, an expert in terms of product management, founder of Producteer, and lecturer. As you already know, by the end of the episode, you can find the release notes where we're going to have a resume of what happened during this episode. But as a sneak peek, I can assure you, you don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone!
Hello.
Oh.
Welcome to a new episode of the Product Weekend. You may have felt that this introduction was a little bit forced or staged. Well, we had some troubles in the first edition of this episode. We have to record it. It will be a different one, unique. And yes, that's why the introductions now were a little bit lame.
You are lame. I'm cool. I'm always cool.
Nice. We already have a good soundbite, so I think
Exactly.
we're on the right track.
Büşra, we'd like to start with what's a recent weekend that you really enjoyed?
So I enjoyed last weekend, which is yesterday, the day before, and Friday. So Friday till Sunday. For one, yes, I was a guest at Product Weekend Zurich, and I had the chance to run a speed impact mapping workshop with all the people who joined the weekend. But what I enjoyed most about that weekend was not the product weekend. I'm sorry for that. It was rather my couch, laying my feet up, because I spent the whole week at a conference, ran a workshop, a one-day workshop on discovery with opportunity solution tree and experimentation on Monday, then 2 days full of a conference in Cologne where I held the opening speech on Wednesday, the opening keynote. And then my whole ride back on Thursday with the Deutsche Bahn that only took us until Basel. And then I had to take the train from Basel to Zurich because Deutsche Bahn was delayed again, like for so much that the train was not allowed to continue to Zurich. And then on Friday, the product weekend, and then I was just like so done, like so exhausted. I just enjoyed my couch and putting my feet up and just have a bit of a chill day.
That's nice. From what you're describing from your week, I guess you deserve it. So
Thank you.
Exactly. And actually, it's a funny thing. We say that like German companies and everything, they work right on time. But Deutsche Bahn is
the opposite of a German company.
Exactly.
It's a nightmare.
So getting into the nitty gritty of the podcast right away, one thing that you talk about and on the first record, but also that you talk a lot about is more regarding the evolution or the different within almost two different product management cultures. And I'd like to dig a little bit here. So could you help us understand what's the main difference within the classical product management and normally as is evolving or as is changing to the tech product management? What's the clash?
So for those who don't know it already, so my background is in classical product or classic product management. So basically, I've always been in product management with my first job already, and even before I graduated. And during my studies, I already learned classic product management in my marketing and innovation lectures. So product management was part of marketing and innovation. And then when I graduated, I started my first job at telco in a classic product management role. And after 2 telco companies, I moved to the digital space with Home24. And that was like a complete culture shock for me. So it was like completely different. And then I moved on to an agency. Then I moved to Switzerland to a marketplace startup, which was even more different than anything that I had seen before, and not like the types. I'm from Berlin originally, and not like the type of startup that I would know from Berlin. And Berlin is a startup hub, right? And then from there, I moved to Doodle. And at Doodle, we were doing more like a mix of classic and tech product management, what we today call actually product led or product operating model, or however we want to call it now. I really don't care. I just think we should agree on one term, and that's it, right? Product driven, product oriented, whatever. So the thing is, and then I went on my self-employment, right? So that was 4 years ago now. So and the difference, what I saw in that journey was that so there are multiple differences, right? So in classic product management, we always start from the market perspective. And the market is a fixed combination of all the players who play a role in exchanging value, which can be exchanging goods, it can be money for money, it can be good for money, service, and so on and so forth. And this means not only, so in tech, when we say market, people think of, oh, competitors, industry, maybe trends and signals. But for us, market has always the customer in there. That means for a product manager who comes from the classic world, it's just not possible to think of any product without, first of all, having the customer in mind. And that is something in tech that I was surprised that we were building things because, well, we thought, why not? Like, let's just build it and see. Or some people were like, oh, yeah, we want to build it because, we want to push our activity, which is also fine. And we did that in classic product management too, right? But in classic product management, when we say we want to push our business results, then we start with the customer in mind and think, okay, how can we do that by either satisfying the customer or at least not pissing them off, right? Like, let's not piss them off because otherwise you cannot make money. And the tech world was like, as I mentioned, right? So people, that's the other part of the role that was so different. So people in tech would basically throw their requirements over the fence, and I would be like, okay, let's take them in, let's see how we can make this work. And this is more like a project management function, right? So in the classic world, this is what a project manager does. And in the classic world, we would not do that. We would be the ones who would do research. And when I say research, this includes discovery. It's not just like desk research, right? So the terminology is also different. In tech, when you say research, people think I sit down and then I Google a little bit. No, it's like proper research with discovery and with understanding the whole market, which includes the customer and so on and so forth, right? Studying customer behavior and this kind of things. And in tech, I wouldn't do that. And I was like, wait, what? This is not my role? But I'm supposed to be thinking, right? Not just coordinating.
Yeah.
And so, and then it took me until, to get to Doodle to apply this thinking again, which is still a bit different because in classic world, what we did wrong was how we did it. Like this big research up front, and then thinking we know what the customer wants, writing those requirements, and then throwing them over to a project manager, right, in some form, and then waiting for it to be launched, and then realizing, oh, this was shit. So, yeah, too late. So this was wrong. And here I'm a big advocate of the lean startup thinking that basically combines all of that, right? So do the right research, measure what's happening, do also your discovery as fixed part of it, and then build it, release, learn, build it, release, learn, right? If you ask me, is the basic for a product-led approach anyways.
It's super interesting. Well, when I started in product management, I don't have any marketing background, so I didn't have contact with traditional way. So like the 4 Ps where product was part of marketing, like product, price, place, and promotion. And actually, from what you're describing, it seems like we forgot some of the good things that we already knew about the classical product management when we went into tech. And I guess that was probably because there was a lot of money and a lot of innovation, and well, money was cheap and people were just building stuff as fast as possible also for the sake of innovation, which in that context makes sense, right? Like eventually launching something without proper research, without that research project that you were mentioning, just to test the market. But now we're going back a bit as money's got more expensive and people are like more worried about costs and about wasting and developing things that will not be used. We're
Yeah.
probably going a bit more into this thing of having the research there as well. So in this case, product discovery. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask in this specific thing about the four P's of marketing. Is that still a thing in reality in classic companies, or not really? Or you don't know? Maybe
I don't know
you've not
anymore.
working in those things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not working in the classic environment anymore. I'm in a tech
Hmm.
environment. From what I hear from friends who are still in touch with classic companies and trying to transform them, yes, they still happen to be a thing. And yes, there's still a bit of, at least in the German speaking area, right? There's
Hmm.
still a bit of a question mark. Why should we do things differently now? Yeah.
It's like
So,
a little bit like product emancipated from the four P's to a proper discipline, and now as it's as people realize that it's not enough to just build things fast and iterate fast, you also need the research, you also need pricing, you also need to promote it in the right way and reach people in the right way. We are
yeah,
getting a little bit with the
To the
product
root.
led wave, a
exactly.
circle.
And the thing is, you don't have to know everything, right? So you are the person who needs to make sure the pieces are a good fit, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to do everything by yourself. It's just like the contrary. You have people who are doing it. In classic, for example, of course, it depends on the company size, and so on and so forth. We would not be doing the pricing part. There was a in one company, in one big telecommunication company, there was a whole team that would work on pricing. We would not do the pricing thing, right? So
Yeah.
we would exchange and collaborate, but was not our responsibility. And it's the same in tech, right? You have to be the one who makes sure everything fits, and you have to have the right conversations with the right people and with the right data points and so on and so forth. But you don't have to do all of that by yourself.
Leading a little bit for the tech product management that we are talking right now, do you think we are reaching a plateau? So basically, with agile innovation product, by the end of the day, aren't we just saying more or less the same with different wording and running in circles, saying like innovation now is a thing, agile now is a thing, now we have to go product?
Yes. That's something that annoys me a lot, right? There are multiple bubbles, which I like this analogy because this is from the conference that I attended last week, and that was supposed to, or that was trying really to bring those bubbles together, and I like that idea. We have different bubbles. We have the agile bubble, we have the product bubble, we have the lean startup bubble, we have even more classic bubbles, right? The project managers are like, what's wrong with project management? And they are right, there's nothing wrong about it. I don't know, there's a Prince 2 bubble, there is a Six Sigma bubble, there are so many bubbles, and within those bubbles everything makes sense. And as soon as you see a different bubble, it's like, they are doing everything wrong, they don't understand, and they don't know what's good, and so on and so forth. Well, it depends on the context, right? And especially looking at the agile bubble, the product bubble, and the lean startup bubble, or business model innovation, right? Especially these three bubbles are actually trying to do the same, all of them. They are maybe using different words, but they're doing the same. I mean, build, measure, learn, or inspect and adapt have the same meaning, no? Like, it's the same. What the hell? Why are we trying to find different words? I mean, we can find different words for that. It's okay. But why are we fighting each other because of the words? We mean exactly the same thing, right? Or when we say in product, we say we need to do proper discovery before we build something, right? We need to figure out if we should build it before we build it. That's exactly the same thing that the lean startup people say, right? We have not invented that, which again goes a little bit with inspect and adapt. I think it doesn't help anybody if we start to bash each other, and if we say, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. Instead, it would help everyone better if we put actually forces together, if we joined forces and would say, look, guys, let's think of outcome, right? We say in the product led world, everything we want to do is we want to work towards outcomes. If the outcome is that you want to be able to innovate better, or if you want to make sure you build the right thing before you spend too much time, increase time to market and time to money, right? If we want to be able to do all of these, then these are the three disciplines that you have to have a look at. And we'll help you figure those things out. But actually, you don't have to figure those things out because we're all doing the same. We just
Yeah.
use different words.
I think what's slightly different when you compare like the product management bubble, which is the bubble we are in mostly, and maybe the others will say the same thing I'm going to say. But when I think about the product management bubble, again, more about first principles and thinking like basically it could be summarized in that thing. Let's think about the outcome and figure out the easiest, most inexpensive way to reach that outcome. Then the rest, it's like a bit whatever, like if we call it this way or that way, or if we do it this way or that way, it doesn't matter. So I think in the product management bubble there's a certain agreement with this statement, and then the words are not so much like a hard, like a fixed truth as in other bubbles. Like I think in the agile or the scrum bubble, for example, there's a
But
lot of
but
details with
isn't
the
that exactly the same as saying working software over comprehensive documentation?
maybe. Yeah, yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Then you got it. Okay, that's a good
Point
point.
proven, right? Point proven.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So here's one thing that I share with my agile boss. So I'm in all of the three bubbles, right?
Yeah.
And that's why
Hmm.
I'm saying this so out loud, that I say, look, guys, we are all trying to do the same. Let's join forces instead of bashing each other. And one thing that I tell my agile bubble is, especially with Scrum, right? So agile is a way of thinking and working. That's something else. It's more like the outcome of how you change the way you work, right? So in order to be able to inspect and adapt in short cycles,
The
right?
softer way.
Yeah, and even Marty Kagan says, like, if you cannot release latest every 2 weeks, latest, then this is what you have to fix first, right? Again, outcome. However you fix it, it doesn't matter, but fix that. And what I tell my agile bubble, especially the Scrum people, is when this movement started, and I have some friends who are part of the very first group, right? Some even signed the Agile Manifesto, so without mentioning any names, or have not signed but could have signed and just had to do some childcare and therefore were not there to sign, right? So even that. And the thing is, it had good intentions and it had the right intentions, and actually the intention was even very, very, very extremely close to what we want from the product, in the product bubble, right? But something happened, while it was going very smooth into the right direction, something happened, poof, and then it kind of lost its way.
I think I like to call it the agile industrial complex. Like this whole
Yes.
thing of selling courses and making money out of teaching people how to do it properly. I think it
Maybe.
has a big
I mean,
impact.
it's part of the thing, right? So now what will happen in our product-led world? We already have a very big product education organization that does that, right? That sells certificates that are branded by that name. And actually everyone that, like, every single person that I talked to who took a class, it's shit, right? But they're still selling, and they're selling the certificate. Why? Because the companies care. In our product led bubble, this has started, and they're also teaching wrong things, and we know that, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So the certification system is one symptom, if you ask me, of this. The other symptom is simply missing knowledge. So there are a bunch of trainers that I know now. They really mean it well when they run the CSPOs. They mean it well, and they say, "Look, I teach the people the part that I know. I tell them there's a whole different part like the whole discovery thing and so on and so forth. But I'm not experienced in that. I don't want to teach you wrong things. So this is the part that I know, which is the delivery part, right? For the rest, you have to have a different education. And as long as they say that, it's fine. But I can imagine that there are trainers out there who don't say this part, who only teach the other part and say, like, this is how you need to work as a PO.
Yeah.
And that is damage, right? So I think education, knowledge, skills, unknown unknowns, this is the problem, rather than the whole certification system. The certification system, I think, is a symptom. There are big consulting firms who already started selling certification and that kind of stuff to companies on the whole product-led approach. So it's just a symptom.
If it's getting big, it's getting money, then people will drive through it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Talking about getting big and getting money around it, how do you envision the new waves around tech product management? We have maybe less than 6 months ago, CEO of Airbnb with some, we could say, bold statements of the future of, at least in his vision of the product management, at least in the Airbnb. What do you think it's going to be like the next big thing in the PM world?
I think slash I hope it's going to be what Moita just said, right? I think it's a pendulum. People are going back to the notion of product management being a commercial function, right? And I think, again, slash I hope, that more and more people will also take the education towards that direction, right? So, which means, yes, figuring out what to build, which is super important. Otherwise, it's shit in, shit out, but faster on the market, right? So, yes, we made it. So, it means more and more product managers will understand the importance of discovery. Now, if they should run discovery or not is a different topic. I have a strong opinion on that, but that's a different topic. Then the other thing is about really the commercial aspect, as in how much revenue will we make with this, right? Um, so that people will start to understand, or are starting to understand, that everything we do in product has a business context. Otherwise, it's a hobby, right? So it would be a hobby if we would not try to achieve business goals with that. So that's the second part of going more and more to the commercial side of building products. And the third side is, and I'm guilty of this, is that product managers will start more and more to collaborate closer with marketing and sales because of this commercial aspect, especially tech product managers who are so much into the tech function, so close to engineers and design, that they have forgotten that there's a whole marketing and sales part of product and the go-to market, and, as you said, pricing aspect and so on and so forth. So I think with the movement of getting more commercial again, it's these three things that product managers will learn more about, or have to learn more about.
It's hitting the buzzword of the year. So basically, bringing more efficiency to what we are doing, right?
It's
But
more effectiveness, I would say. I mean,
effect, yeah,
yeah, efficiency is what we do with the delivery already, right? And that's
yeah, yeah.
great. I mean, there are still companies out there who struggle with shipping anything. Yes, we still have those companies, and they have to get to the point that they can ship something frequently. And now we also have to make it effective what we build, right?
Hey, just a quick note. We really hope that you're enjoying the podcast, and please follow us on social media and leave us a rate on your favorite stream platform. Let's continue with the episode.
Moving on to another section of the podcast. So you already talked that we need to start doing proper discovery, that we also need to understand the importance of discovery. If you only had like one sentence, how do you describe product discovery?
I would describe it as figure out what to build and what not. Discovery has two parts, right? Problem discovery, solution discovery. Think of the double diamond. Again, nothing that we have invented. We are just using it, right? The double diamond, or if we take it a step back, if we can call it not problem space, solution space, but opportunity space and solution space. And in discovery, you have to discover both, right? You have to discover a problem worth solving, or a unmet need that is worth meeting or serving, right? Or a desire that is worth serving, and the proper solution for that. And if at any point in this discovery part. You skip discovery and think you know what to build because you know everything. Well, there's still a chance that's successful, right? So by chance, but that's not a repeatable process. So that's not repeatable way of finding the right problem to solve or the right solution to that problem, which we call problem solution fit. And if we get it right and address the right market for that, then it's product market fit.
Cool. And one question, you already touched on it, but you didn't go into details about who should run discovery. Should it be the product managers? What's your strong opinions there? Did I trap you somehow?
Yeah. No, I noticed that it's my own fault, so let's do that. There was a discussion. Somebody blamed Teresa Torres for doing harm in the industry. And I found it very, the right English word, cowardly. Like, how can you do that? How can you blame a person who is trying to increase awareness of the problem that we're not doing enough discovery, in a way that you blame that person for doing harm? My opinion on that is we definitely need more discovery in the tech space, for sure. In the classic space, we need to do it differently. We do it, but we do it differently, and we need to adapt to the agile way of doing it. I am just not 100% aligned with the notion that a trio should do all that work, as in product manager, product designer, and a tech lead or a engineer, right? And I did that. I did that in different setups in the past companies, and it works well. But what works even better is when you have a UX researcher. And that's the whole discussion, right? What works well when you have a UX researcher? They have such a big toolbox of things that they can do. We are arrogant. I was arrogant before I worked with them, right? So I thought, like, yeah, I know how to do that, blah, 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 blah. And I did. And then we had a UX researcher. It was a designer who was very deep into UX research. And oh my God, she blew my mind. I was like, please do more of that. Please show us, right? So, and I was like, yeah, thank you. And it was amazing. She crashed it, right? And so, is that the right word? What works not so well when you put every research activity or discovery activity on the shoulders of UX researchers is you have to find a way how they fit into a team so that it's shared with the team, and not just after the research was done, but actually they need to take them with them. So in a interim product leadership position that I worked in my self-employment time, the UX researcher was the first person that I hired because I said, we need someone after seeing how they work. I said, we need that one. That's the first person. And they were like, are you sure? Should we hire a product manager? No. Product researcher we need. And it was amazing. And what she did was she took all of us with her through her approach, what she's going to do, how she's going to do it. We joined the calls that she had, like in a very organized and structured way, so that we were directly part of it. We helped with synthesizing the results and so on and so forth, and even creating the results to present to the management, right? So we were, as a team, part of the whole research and discovery without missing anything. So, going back to the beginning, what I meant with the trio being in charge or not, there are still a lot of companies who don't have a researcher or a designer with a good deep research background. And in that case, yes, please let the trio do the discovery, and every bit and piece that they will find out will be better than just having a good breakfast and thinking that milk is the best solution for lactose intolerant people. But if you can afford it, hire a researcher and make them be part of that team, and make the team be part of the research. And I think that was some things that I believe Teresa Torres and Marty Kagan were referring to when they said, like, if a researcher does the work, then they tend to close the work and only present the results, and people don't understand where these come from. And that I agree, it shouldn't be that way. But hire a researcher. They are amazing. That's my strong opinion on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually worked once in a setting like that with a UX researcher that they were involved with the team, so they were part of the dailies initially, but then it became clear that with the developers and with the researcher, we were talking about very different things. So we decided to separate, and basically we had these two cycles happening at the same time, and then there was some touch points with the two teams. And also the engineers and so on were invited to the sessions where they were doing research with users and so on. Do you have any specific advice on how to set up that flow that has worked well for you?
In both companies it was different and it worked well, so my
Okay.
advice here is always like figure it out for your team. I'm a huge fan of well run retrospective, so if that is the result in the retrospective that it doesn't work for the team, then it's fine, then inspect and adapt, right? Just make sure you have the outcome in mind. So if the outcome is still that the team is part of it, then make sure at least one of the engineers is somehow taking part in the process, right? Or maybe there is this feedback round or something like that. So make sure that there's always this connection between the researcher and engineers. And we also have to have those diverse views on the research itself, right? I can't continue calling it research. I know in modern product management we call it discovery, but I have problems with that. That's still my
With the
classic
naming.
thinking. Yeah, that's the naming. It's to me it's still research because we did discovery as well, right? So that was
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, but you
Anyways,
use more the product discovery coach title around.
yeah,
Should be product research, no? But you
yeah.
put the product discovery title just for you to remember more the word so that it comes more often
Maybe.
to
So
you.
until today, I don't use the product discovery title. So product discovery coach title, I don't. I just call myself product management trainer.
So, for you, what are like the main hurdles when you are helping a new company with starting their product discovery?
Making them aware what that actually means. Just as an example, the workshop from Monday, it was in German. We called it customer centric product discovery. I mean, even that you have to say customer centric product discovery is a thing, right? But you have to, because when you go and say like, yeah, we have to discover what we should build, then they will be like, yeah, go to this stakeholder and that teammate and that colleague, and they will tell you what to build. And this is like, no, this is not what we want to achieve, right? We have to get this customer centric view of seeing the world back into the companies. And it's the work starts there, right? And then it's like, yeah, but we still have needs in the company. We have requirements for this and that. So I'm not a transformation coach. Yeah. So I'm not transforming companies. I come in either after they're transformed or while they're transforming to build up the skills to work in that kind of environment, or when in a one-on-one setup training the product manager, so that the product manager actually trains the rest of the team or that kind of things. Then I have to clarify that we want to look external, right? And that, however, the internal needs are not looked away. So we still need to do some sort of stakeholder discovery as well, right? But we just change how we take them into consideration of what to build. And the whole work starts actually from there.
If you had to define, and I think you already covered it, but just to be completely clear, if you have to define like the first step in every discovery, first, could you have like that kind of, you have to start here? And if you have a yes for that, what should it be?
Talk to a customer. Sometimes it's that, right? So sometimes it's like, yeah, but our salespeople talk to customers every day, and someone's like, yeah, sure, okay, appreciate it, right? And then be like, okay, now talk to a customer in a different way, right? Just put the product in front of them, sit down and observe how they use the product,
Understand the journey.
and just do that. Just do one, okay? It's no risk. Just do one. And depending on the company, maybe I give them like some questions to ask the customer, right? And I'm like, just be very open, write the answers down, or maybe send it out as a survey, right? So, whatever. Just do that with one customer, and then we'll talk again. And usually, this is like, oh my God, what? You never have talked to your customer or watched them use your product, right? So it's not only with the engineers, it's sometimes also with other positions as well, that it's the easiest, but at the same time, the hardest thing to do, to talk to a customer.
Okay. So for this research to work, also one important thing, thinking more about the team, is that people are comfortable sharing their insights. I mean, these insights can come from different people that are either talking to their customers or like going through, I don't know, the hotjar things and seeing people interact, or even from analytics, or even something that the developers notices. So you need to also create an environment where people feel comfortable and empowered to speak up. Do you have any example where this was a problem and you had to somehow help overcome this, that people were somehow like afraid of speaking up, or you didn't find it as an issue until now? Like seeing some data that would mean that the feature we just built doesn't make sense and should be deleted, for an engineer to be comfortable enough pointing that out and saying, hey, maybe we should think about this, or maybe we should work on
Mm.
these other things.
There were two situations that I can share. So one situation was that the engineering team was external, and there the company had like one contact person, and that person would basically manage the whole team and so on and so forth. And then in that situation, it's complicated because you're in a contractor role and your team gets paid by work that they have to do. So as a company, they decided only to have this one contact person, right? To have the meetings with and so on and so forth. But the problem is when you have that one contact person, you lose the connection to the others. And then the question was, okay, should you raise the costs and make sure that the engineers, all of them, join the meetings? Yes or no? And then we went into a middle path. So they did not join all of the meetings, but some meetings, so that they felt somehow part of the team. And then it was the product manager who had to make sure that in those conversations where the external team joined as well, they would share statistics, usage data, metrics that they have maybe not met, right? And also show, I always say, show, don't tell, right? And also show with your own actions that it's okay to point things out. And some engineers in that team were internal, and those engineers actually did that, right? So they were like, okay, but if people don't use this and that, why are we actually building this? And the product manager had to have answers to that. And if he didn't, then people had to, like, people would toast the product manager, basically roast the product manager. Anyways, toast is better than roast. Anyways, they would roast the product manager and would be like, okay, but then doesn't make sense that I continue working on this. And the externals saw that. And at one point, they started to write the contact person who was also in the chat, right? And the contact person would speak it out. And then I encouraged the product manager to actually speak that out and be like ask questions. Somebody who has raised this will have to answer. And the person answered the question, the person who actually had the question, right? And at one point, the product manager pointed out, look, guys, you don't need that proxy. We want to make sure we build something that is useful. Please, if you have a concern, that's why we share the numbers here. I want everybody to contribute. And it took some time, of course, like quite some weeks, but at one point they opened up and contributed as well. That was one example. Yeah.
That's a super interesting and probably common example when you're working with external teams, either in delivery or even in design or other things. it
Yeah.
it can happen that way, that there's more like constraint and second thought of, should I say this, will this hurt my role? Yeah, that's a cool one. Nice.
Shall we go for the sprint questions?
Let's
What
go.
are sprint questions? Are these secret questions that you prepare for everyone?
Yeah, are you ready?
Exactly.
Did you warm up?
Let's go. For the first one digital product you struggle to live without.
Miro. No way I could do without Miro. No.
What's the most underrated skill in product management?
Negotiation. Definitely negotiation, because you have to negotiate with everyone, everywhere, all the
all the
time.
time.
And negotiation doesn't mean you want to convince them to do what you say, but it's more like this communication skill that makes sure that you're all on the same page. And maybe it is about trading, right? Maybe it's about just getting an alignment or an agreement for something. So, yeah.
And final one, if you could shadow any product manager or leader for a day, who would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult one. It looks like I don't have any idol or something. Actually, not necessarily product manager, but okay, so two people I would like to shadow because I find their work very interesting is John Cutler is one,
Hmm,
because he sees so many different companies, right? And like all the complexity and so on. I would like to see that too. And the second is okay, I need to pick one. So it's either Alexander Osterwalder or David Bland, like one of those two,
great
who are in
choices.
the innovation space.
Moita, do we have our
Cool.
release notes?
Yep. So one of the main differences from the classical product management and tech product management is that the classic PM starts always from the market perspective. Eventually, the product management or product became a separate discipline from marketing, and now it's beginning to bring some of the classic things into product again, like pricing, promotion, etc. There are a bunch of different bubbles that we talked about, like product, agile, innovation, lean startup, and they are very adversarial, which is not a good thing and brings more confusion than clarity. But in the end, they are essentially trying to do the same. Agile, in particular, started with, well, with the Agile Manifesto and other initiatives and people. It started with very good intentions, but at some point it derailed, and the exploitation of the certifications market is a symptom of the problem, which we are starting to see a little bit in the product space as well. You hope
And
that the
someone
product.
will invent something like the Scrum certification system for product coaches as well. I'm
Yeah,
sure somebody will invent that. Let's
yeah,
see who that will be.
but yeah, the bottom line is like try to avoid that if possible as an industry if you're listening to
Would
this.
be nice. I'm a certified Scrum professional as well, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, the only
Why
reason
did I
why
do it?
no, well, I'm like, the only reason why I do this is because now Agile Bubble sees that I'm into it and I'm not just
Hmm.
the next product manager who's trying to bash Agile, right? So I know my
Okay.
shit.
Cool, cool. For the future, you hope that the product function will go more toward the commercial side. PMs working closer with sales, with marketing, go to market, pricing, etc. Then we talked a bit
And
about
discovery.
and
Definitely
discovery.
and discovery.
Yeah, about discovery. The simple definition is to understand and figure out what to build and what not to build. There is the problem and solution discovery that we talked about. And if you don't do discovery in the right way at any of these points, you can still eventually deliver something with value by chance, but it's not a repeatable process. And that's why it's so
Yeah.
important to do it
Yeah.
consistently. You mentioned that we need more discovery in the tech product management space. And in the classic product management space, we not necessarily need more discovery, but we need to do it differently, like less waterfall and more iterative. One thing that you like, instead of having the trio, the PM, the designer, and the engineer, you like, and you've seen it working really well, having a UX researcher, because they have an extensive toolbox for it and they can bring a lot of value. The
Yeah.
downside is that it's trickier to integrate them into the team and making sure that they are involved and the work is shared with everyone.
And they can
Uh,
be in a team of four, like the trio plus a researcher, for example.
Then, in terms of main challenges with working with a new company on product discovery, is making them understand what it actually means. And bringing people on board to share ideas is key within the team. So, show, don't tell that it's okay to share and ask difficult questions.
Yeah.
And I think this is it. I think we have quite good release notes.
Yes, they're amazing. I'm like, what? You wrote all of that? Oh, so okay, cool.
Nice. We had some useful stuff, I think. Quite good.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you, Büşra, for this almost 1 hour.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks a
for
lot
having
for the
me.
time.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
for
lot.
having me
Bye
and the
bye.
great questions.
Thank you for joining us for this second episode of the second season of the Product Weekend podcast. We really hope that we enjoyed, and please leave us a rate and share with your friends. For the next episode, we'll have Ben Williams. I'm sure we'll like it, and please have a blast.